Just imagine the following scenario. You're running to catch a bus, and you get to the bus, bang, the bus takes off. How would that make you feel? Have you ever had that kind of thing happen to you? It's likely to make you feel quite disappointed and quite upset. Now, what would happen if you looked at scenario, you looked at that situation and you said to yourself, I'm going to view it from a neutral perspective. I'm going to view it from a neutral place. Okay? So I'm watching myself run to catch the bus. I'm watching myself running to catch that bus, and the bus takes off. Now, I'm going to bear in mind that there are some people running to catch an appointment, and if they get to that appointment even a minute late, they'll be affected. I'm going to bear in mind that the bus driver has to get to the next bus stop lest he get reprimanded for not doing that. And if you have a certain amount of points of reprimandation, maybe he'll get fired. So there's so many different pointers to bear in mind when considering what that bus driver is having to confront, may have to confront, what the passengers on that bus may have to confront. On a similar note, if you don't take buses and you only take cars, you're in traffic and you see somebody who cuts you off, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late now. That person cut me off. I'm stuck behind the red light now, and all the people behind me are stuck behind the red light. And you're like, no consideration for people. That person has no consideration for people. Now, what would happen if you view that from a neutral perspective? Again, you're viewing it from over here and you're saying, that person cut me off because that person had to get to an appointment on time. You realize where I'm going with this? It's the opposite way of viewing it now, because the driver and the passenger in a car, a driver who's a passenger in a car, has the ability to get to the places they want to get on time. So it's the opposite way of looking at it now. And so therefore, when you look at it from a neutral perspective, you are able to hence put things in perspective and gain track in that ability to get onto a spiritual ascension journey. I want to carry on and talk about a vital point of discussion which correlates to this topic. It's a point of discussion which I've discussed a lot throughout the last few months, particularly since the month of May, and that is the idea, the concept that life happens for you, not to you. And I always use that like pointing to the heart versus pointing to the head. Why do I do that? Because when you believe that life happens for you, and you believe that you're part of the collective, the universal collective, and you realize that everybody is connected with you, and life doesn't happen to you, and when you think that life happens to you, as a result, you think that you're disassociated, disconnected from the people around you in this world, you think that that person is that religion, or that person is not your nationality, not your race, let's say, whatever scenario, no need to get into particulars on this matter. So when you get into that realization that the people around you are part of your collective, you hence go on and become a lot more successful at seeing things from a neutral perspective. Even in your own life, when you're struggling with a problem, right? And you're really upset that you made a certain choice. You're really disappointed that you made a certain choice because it caused a ripple effect and a domino effect on many scenarios which played out thereafter. You could look at that situation from a personal perspective and go, shucks, I am so disappointed I did that. I really regret it. I'm so awfully disappointed about it. Or what you could do is view it from a neutral perspective. Neutral. And you say, at that point in time, that's all I knew. And that's why I made that choice to do what I did then. I'm glad that I learned new ideas. I'm glad that I learned new concepts. And if it has particularly to do with somebody who violated your boundaries, you can make it a point of realizing that their means of violating your boundaries only happened because at that point of time, you didn't know how to close your boundaries properly. Because you couldn't close your boundaries properly, The gate was open. Like I said over the past few weeks, the scenario with the gate and the bike in the backyard. If you leave the gate open, it's going to get stolen. And don't buy a new bike and leave the gate open again, because that's what's going to happen. Similarly, when it comes to the boundaries, comes to our boundaries, when we realize our boundaries and we really, really put a lock and seal on our boundaries, nobody violates our boundaries. So look at your life from a neutral perspective. Look at the life of others from a neutral perspective. Look at your own life from a neutral perspective. And you will hence gain that ability to have life become a lot more fruitful, a lot more enjoyable, and a lot more beneficial. I want to go back to point and mention the concept that we are all part of the collective. And if you hurt somebody, it's like hurting yourself. If you stop talking to somebody, it's because you're hurting yourself. Not just because, it's as a result, you're actually hurting a part of yourself. Once again, I'll say though, if there's somebody who's violating your boundaries, you need to really put up the barriers, and you can't talk to somebody who violates your boundaries. That's a very obvious concept. Now, I must point out that when people are violating your boundaries, it's because, and I hate to say this, but it's because you're not entirely safe inside of you. That's why you need to seal off your boundaries and say goodbye to them and get rid of them. If you're entirely safe, sound, and secure within you, you wouldn't have to knock anybody out of your life. You'd be able to stay with everybody in your life and have no problem. And I'll be the first one to admit that I'm not entirely secure. I'm not perfect, and I had to get rid of certain people in my life, and I had to stop talking to them because I'm not perfect, and I still have to secure my boundaries as a result. So what happens when you see life from a neutral perspective? What happens when you see your own reality from a neutral perspective? You gain track, and you gain that ability to manifest what you've always dreamt of manifesting. And this all correlates to the topic of the law of attraction. You can materialize, manifest that which you want to manifest once you have gotten yourself within the palm of your hand. Once you have gotten yourself up and on track with these concepts of manifesting a wholesome perspective, of manifesting a healthy perspective, and manifesting the abundancy which comes hereafter, then you could go on to look at the laws of attraction. But if you're not there yet, you can't really apply the laws of attraction. Although sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Most of all, it's not really going to work. The laws of attraction are not really going to work if you've not applied these means of seeing yourself and that of others from a neutral perspective, and if you haven't applied the good boundaries which you need between yourself and others. Of course, this correlates to the topic that the people around us are just a reflection of us, and because the people around us are just a reflection of us, that is why we need to secure our own internal self. How much self-dialogue goes on within us that we barely even realize? If you would ask somebody, do you really respect and love yourself? Do you really value yourself? Most people say, of course I do, of course I do. Then you'd hence go and check up on how they talk about themselves, how they actually value themselves, and you would then realize that they don't really recognize themselves. They don't really recognize how much they put themselves down. So it takes a lot of introspection, and it takes a lot of internal research, figuring yourself out and realizing how it is, what it is I could do to manifest and seal and tighten up those open boundaries which are still not entirely shut. I want to correlate this to the concept of the Jewish New Year, which is all about the day of connecting with God. The day of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is all about connecting with God, crowning God, giving God his crown. What does that mean, giving God his crown? That actually means, it doesn't mean God's going to smite you if you don't smile at him and love him. No, God is a lot more mature than that, okay? God is not immature. He doesn't care if people love him or not. That actually means that God created the world, and he created within the world the ability for all of us to manifest our purpose here, manifest our life here. So when you crown God, when you give God the crown, you hence give yourself the ability to manifest your wishes, to become godly, and to realize how powerful you are. How powerful you are. That is the concept of God. That's the true essence of godliness. That's the true essence of you. And that is part of my message of becoming more neutral, which is something God does. God has to do, because God has to see things from many, many different angles. And it's part of the concept of closing your boundaries, because when you close your boundaries, people around you don't violate your boundaries, and people around you feel more secure, so you're acting more godly. It correlates to the entire concept, correlates to today's message. That's my message today. Jews are about to finish an entire decade of the 5770s. It's exciting. I'm wishing you a great Happy New Year if you celebrate the Jewish New Year. Have a great time. I'm about to carry on my second day of a 4-day water fast. Great stuff. It is my way of doing a lot of introspection. I love you so much. I wish you high vibes, high frequency, and I look forward to seeing you in the next year. The next video, which will be the next Jewish year. I love you so much, and have a great Jewish New Year. I love you tons.